fire, longing for love once more.
Sie können die Maske abnehmen. Sie können sie abnehmen.
Ach so, danke
Ich
sehr.
befreie Sie von Ihrer Maske.
Danke sehr.
Sie wollen wohin? Maske können Sie runternehmen.
Für Verspätung.
Och, ein bisschen. Oh. Maske können Sie ruhig runternehmen.
Einmal.
Ja? Ich mag keine Masken.
Ich auch nicht.
Maskenfreie Fahrt.
Ja.
Da wird gerade ein Mädchen mit ihrem Freund, die verabschieden sich gerade. Legt natürlich noch ihre Maske an, aber befreien wir sie gleich von der Maske. Hallo? Maske ab bitte. Ich möchte heute eine maskenfreie Fahrt durchführen. Irgendjemand muss sich hier anfangen zu wehren gegen diesen ganzen Schwachsinn, ne? Maske kannst du ruhig abnehmen.
Okay. Yeah, that ends abruptly. That's why I brought us up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was nice to see.
Yeah, it was good to see. Julie found that this morning and shared it with me. And welcome to Bookmark.
Yeah, welcome to our biweekly podcast.
Yeah, the biweekly podcast from Book of Hours. And that was a German bus driver. I'm not sure what city. Might have been Munich. And he was telling his riders that they don't have to wear a mask when they get on board. In fact, he told them to take them off.
Right. He told them to take their masks off.
And I loved that. And I would love to hang out with that guy. He seemed like a cool dude.
Yeah, I think what we should do is send that video and tweet it out to all of the transportation agencies
Right.
throughout the country.
Yeah.
Chicago, the CTA, the MTA, the San Francisco Muni, the Port Authority,
And to Numtot.
Yeah. And say, make your bus drivers be more like this guy.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
tell people to take off the mask if they want.
Yeah, I agree. It's,
Hmm.
just watching that, I was like, wow, I want him to be my bus driver.
I know. I want him to be
Yeah.
my bus driver too, because we don't have a car.
Right, exactly.
We take the bus everywhere.
And it's a stressful situation when you get on.
It is. It's stressful when you have to see everybody who normally would be chatting with one another
Hmm. Yeah.
suddenly all muzzled up and not even making eye contact and not talking.
Well, that's something that I noticed before and after the masking
Mhm.
requirement on the bus
Mhm.
is, Pittsburghers are loquacious and boisterous people,
Hmm.
and
They love to chat. They love to talk.
Yeah, they love to talk about anything, and they'll tell
Mhm.
you about themselves at the drop of a hat and their life history
Oh,
and
yeah.
everything.
So when we first
And,
started, taking the bus here, when we
Mhm.
first moved here a couple of years ago, we noticed that these, the people would get on the bus and the bus would be so loud.
Right.
We used to complain about it because
Right.
everybody would be talking to each other and telling each other their life stories and oh, hey, are you coming over on Tuesday for, barbecue wings or
Right.
whatever?
That's the other
You
thing.
know?
Yeah, because I noticed that people would be riding the bus and we'd be riding along for a while, and then all of a sudden somebody would get on, and this person would know the other person, and I'd see that all the time. I saw that occasionally in San Francisco in certain neighborhoods,
But not.
but San Francisco buses are what Pittsburgh buses are now. It's like it's quiet.
They're very quiet in San Francisco because there's, 750,000 people in 49 square miles, and everybody's coming from all over the world, and nobody knows each other.
Right.
Well, it's not like that in Pittsburgh. Everybody who lives here goes back generations. They've known each other for years. So the bus is a time of
social time.
It's social time on the bus. And so what we noticed in the age of COVID, when it transitioned into everybody having to wear a mask, that suddenly people stopped talking to each other. Yeah. Which was heartbreaking.
It is, because
it was a palpable difference.
Right.
And we were shocked by it.
I really was. And even if people don't know each other, they start talking to one another. If there's something that catches their attention, hey, I like your Stillers jersey or whatever, right? Something like that, or they talk about the game or whatever it is that's current or what's on their mind, and people would talk. And I thought that, that was one of the things that was both annoying and charming about moving to the city.
Right.
So as we mentioned, this is Bookmark, and this is a bi-weekly show. This is show number 37.
Right.
We started it about a year ago.
I guess we did in the age of COVID.
Yeah, exactly. As a result. So today we're going to talk about a few things. First up, I think we should talk about maybe the Palestine, Gaza attacks on Gaza, and the subsequent protests.
Right.
Yeah. So. Like some other protests that we've seen in the past, these seem to be spontaneously erupting out of nowhere.
Yeah, they're pretty big. It was amazing how Berlin, Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, probably any of the big cities in the United States, as well as many cities throughout the world, came out all at the same time.
Gosh, I wonder how that happened.
All at the same time.
That's
really interesting.
I'm gonna. I put out a tweet recently. Let's see. So the timing of the attacks on Palestine came the week of Eid, the end of Ramadan fasting, and the time of feasting. The attacks stem from globalization goals, equity, and equality, making us all the same, erasing all culture and differentiation in favor of a community none of us are part of.
Right.
And we've noticed that the language that comes out of the World Economic Forum and other sort of equity-based language that they are also they go hand in glove with these kinds of like big protests, like the BLM protests that were happening. The protests that were happening during the summer, they all seem really inauthentic. And I'm wondering if do you have some thoughts around that?
Well, I mean, everything needs to be taken into the context of where we are now. A lot of people are still looking at this protest for these marginalized areas of the world that have always been under attack and are always treated unfairly. They're still looking at it through the lens of the 20th century or the early 21st century even, and we're in the age of COVID now. So the goal in the age of COVID is to turn the entire global population into a digital plantation or some kind of slave grid. So they're equaling out, they're equalizing out all of this. And so if you see, these kinds of protests and things coming up, you have to look at it through that lens. Of course, we're still, in solidarity with the Palestinians, of course.
Right.
But I think that it feels a little inauthentic.
Hmm.
Certain parts of it. I think
Sure.
that if I pay closer attention to Vanessa Beeley and some of the things that she tweets out and puts out, I feel there's more authenticity to what I'm seeing with what she shares versus these all of a sudden this crazy eruption of parts of our country that don't even ever really talk about Palestine. All of a sudden, 20,000 people coming out in droves to talk about it or
Right.
to protest about it. It feels um,
Well,
a little
yeah,
theatrical.
yeah, exactly. Well, suddenly I didn't know that there were that many Palestinian flags in the United States. I mean,
I know.
we don't have any footage of the protests, but I mean, you can see it around the internet. In all the big cities all over the world, there are these huge protests with tons of people and all these flags. And I can remember when these kinds of things, these attacks have happened in the past, especially living in San Francisco, where people love to protest. Palestinian
They never protest for Palestine.
pro-Palestinian protests were always a handful of people, 100 people at best.
Mhm.
Okay, so this is really this is really suspect
It's
in
really
my
suspect.
mind. Yeah, I think that this is about exploiting like Julie was saying, it's exploiting marginalized people.
Right. It's called the outrage industrial
Right,
complex.
and so
Is what I call it.
and so my tweet was sort of based on that, like the people, organizations like the World Economic Forum are lifting up communities like the trans community. They're lifting up the Palestinians and other communities that are under attack in order to do like what I was saying. It's like it equals the playing field and taking away their individual qualities, who they are as a people and a culture,
Mhm.
and basically just smearing it across the cultural screen
Feels like it.
so that that doesn't exist anymore. So that's the whole point of lifting them up, is to take away what they are as a culture and as a people.
I also thought it was really interesting that they came out on the same day as the World Demonstration
Yeah, how convenient.
Freedom Day, just like back in March when there was another World Demonstration Freedom Day. It was March 20th. It was also the same day as the Stop Asian Hate rally.
Right.
So basically, your life is now a series of protests. That's your life now.
Right.
It's a series. You can choose which protest you want to go to. That's basically what defines your life for fun
Mhm.
in the age of COVID. And this is something that Cory Morningstar talked about years ago.
Mhm.
Activism is the new sport for the
Right.
bourgeoisie. I'm of course giving the
voice of
the
Tory.
voice of Tory Evening Star, who I created based on Cory Morningstar. So, who's a writer. But anyway, so to me, it's starting to lose its. I'm not interested in activism. If there are some Palestinians that live locally to me and feel like they need some support or some help, I would much rather do sort of on the ground, face to face, very localized, very microscopic work with local people, kind of like we do anyway around here,
Right.
with our marginalized community.
Right. Well, certainly we support, and feel in solidarity. That's the word
Of
I'm looking for.
course. I
With the
mean,
Palestinian people.
of
It's just that
course.
we don't support the governments that come out of the movements that the Hamas and the other, I forget, the Palestinian Authority. I mean, there's a problem in those two words right there. Palestinian, that's one thing. Authority is something else,
Mhm.
right? And it's always been a problem for the people of Palestine, both in Gaza and in um, uh, wow. My geography has just gone away. It's flown out of me. But unfortunately, the Israelis have bisected the culture, the Palestinians, into two segments of Israel, and they no longer have any continuity between the two sides, and so divide and conquer, right?
Right.
So this has been a problem for a long time, and I think that what am I trying to say? The problem is they've been trying to create governments to support the people of Palestine, and it doesn't help them at all. That's, I guess, what I was getting at.
Right. We
Yeah.
look at things more from a philosophical and propaganda perspective.
Mhm.
If you're looking for, specific names, times, dates, geographical locations, then go to your journalists like Vanessa Beeley or Eva Bartlett or Corey Morningstar. Those people. We're looking at it from a propaganda perspective,
Mhm.
and when I see these kind of inauthentic movements taking place for these
Mhm.
marginalized communities,
Yeah.
my heart goes out to the marginalized communities because I know that they're being exploited.
Yeah.
They're being exploited by NGOs. They're being exploited by uh, Asian provocateurs. They're being exploited by our intelligence apparatus.
Mhm.
That's just all there is to it.
Right.
So uh, I, I I look at a lot of what comes out in these protests under the lens of scrutiny from a marketing perspective and from a propaganda perspective.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I'm wondering exactly what it is that the people of Gaza or Palestine are going to benefit when NGOs are supporting mass protest movements
Mm.
on their behalf. I feel like they're being used,
Mhm.
just like the Black community is being used for Black Lives
Well,
Matter.
and just like the Stop Asian Hate protest that took place,
Right.
right?
Right.
It was really, that felt really inauthentic to me, and I think it was designed specifically to take out the worldwide demonstration day.
Right.
This one doesn't feel as much like that to me, but I feel that,
Right.
you know,
It definitely does not feel like that. But
but
yeah,
it just
Stop Asian
has,
Hate
yeah,
was created. It was literally, there's like no issue there, and it was created. It was fabricated in
right,
order to pull away from these demonstrations, which are basically what the world demonstration days are about, which one happened on March 15th and another one happened on March 20th, and then another one happened on May 15th. What they are all about are the protest against fascism and
hmm
Nazism
hmm
and tyranny, and the reversal and the inversion of your human rights.
hmm yeah.
Um, and I don't see a problem with that.
Well, yeah, of course,
I'm kind of against,
yeah,
human rights violations
and not to say that
all across the world.
people aren't, especially of Asian descent, aren't being discriminated against. It's just that that protest was just over the top, and I think that it also um, did that happen during Asian Awareness Month, or was that another month? I forget.
Take your pick,
take your
right?
pick, right? But it had it stunk of idpol. It smelled of
Yeah. Yeah, it didn't.
again, what I was talking about, of like taking a culture, taking a cultural identity as opposed to a political identity, right? And a cultural identity, and just smearing it, and just equalizing us all. And taking away our differences,
Right.
that make us, the differences that make us who we are,
Right, and I think
as
that's
opposed to what keeps us separated.
and that's where your tweet comes in, where you talk about Eid.
hmm
You talk about the fasting had just ended, and the feasting was next, and right when that happened is when the attacks took place, which feels really, really underhanded and just mean and petty and just wrong.
Right. Well, and then
It's really
yeah, and then on top of that, right? So we were talking about this
like
earlier.
you can't have your culture.
Exactly. But also, all these people who have come out for Palestine, apparently, right? All these flags, they're all pro-Israel as well, right? I mean, because 2 months ago, or even a year ago, you couldn't say anything without being called an anti-Semite, right? So these things that are going on, they're designed to keep you confused and not sure what you're supporting and what you're thinking. Anti-Semitism is something else altogether, right?
Right.
But in this case, this allowed this action that took place, and I believe that this was all designed. This action allowed Israel to attack Palestine really hard, especially the week of Eid. Like we saw a video of some guys like pushing the cops out of their house, and
there was food everywhere.
There was food everywhere, and I was like, "Well, wait a minute.
Oh, the food Ramadan? Is because of Ramadan, right?
It wasn't Ramadan around this time, isn't there? Like, and I looked it up, and it was like, oh, on the calendar it said Eid, and I was like, oh, well, Eid is the end of Ramadan. That's what was going on in that video. They were preparing for Eid, and the Israeli police or soldiers were trying to come into there, and they had nightsticks and whatever, but. Whether that video was authentic or not, it doesn't matter. It felt authentic as well. But what it showed me was these motherfuckers are attacking the Palestinians in a time of celebration, and a time of like the ending of a holy period, and the beginning of something new, right? And it was a time and it was completely unnecessary. But see, this whole plan was to attack the Israelis to attack the Palestinians at a very specific point. And then you roll out the protests, and the protests, I don't think even acknowledged this.
No,
right?
They don't. Of course not. They don't acknowledge the very specific pinpointed time that they were attacked, which was during the feasting. During the time that when they went from fasting to feasting, which is a cultural practice.
Right.
They want to take away cultural practices and equalize everybody so that nobody has anything, of their own that they can call their own. I mean, this gets into a more philosophical discussion about, the goals in the age of COVID, but
of global governance.
And global governance. I think we can truly see a very microscopic, very good example of that with these latest attacks and the timing of them.
Yeah.
Moving on to the latest. Do we have a screenshot of
No,
the
I
article?
didn't see that.
It's okay. It's going around. People know about it. Moving on to the latest press release from Homeland Security. So Homeland Security and signal intelligence are ramping up. As we all should have known, this should not be a surprise to social media influencers and people who are, on the radar, so to speak. This shouldn't be a surprise to you.
So what was in that document?
Well, it was a statement by the Homeland Security. Basically, disinformation and conspiracy theories are equated with terrorism and white supremacy, and that they're going to set up for identifying dissidents and install travel restrictions.
Right.
This is something that was done during 9/11 as well. I know that, for instance, I think around after the 9/11 event, Naomi Wolf was put on a no-fly list for having toured Guantanamo Bay kind of by accident, and then all of a sudden Obama. So it was during the Obama administration that she was put on a no-fly list.
So after, long
after 9/11. So it was after 9/11,
but still.
But it's you have to just acknowledge that Homeland Security and the national security apparatus and intelligence operatives are crawling all over social media. I mean, this isn't something that should be shocking or scary to you. I mean, you can live your life and continue to do what you do and be who you are, but just you kind of have this understanding that signal intelligence is looking at you.
Yeah. Well, I think also...
I don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I don't consider it really scary. I just consider it part of being an American.
Right now, yeah. for a long time, this idea of um, hate speech is equivalent to speaking out against the state, or speaking out against the actions that were taking place after March 13th. That we shouldn't have to be wearing masks, and we shouldn't have to be locked down, and this kind of rhetoric was being equated with hate speech, white supremacy, terrorism, and for them to conflate all these ideas was deliberate, right? And they've been doing it for about a year now. Now, as a result of all that, they are now taking it and saying, those of you that are spreading disinformation, which could be anything, right? So YouTube and Facebook will take down posts where people are actually like posting information from the CDC or from the National Health Institute, or what is it, NIH or NHI?
National Institute of Health.
NIH.
NIH.
Yeah. So people will actually be posting, real information from the sources that the news sources that draw from, and yet because you are not a quote unquote official journalist, you're not CNN, you get taken down or you get dinged,
right?
Or something.
So let me look at this website, which I tweeted earlier a couple of days ago. Today's the 16th, so this came out on the 14th, 2 days ago. The Department of Homeland Security issued a National Terrorism Advisory System Bulletin Friday, warning that the U.S. is facing threats posed by domestic terrorists, and that violent extremists may attempt to exploit easing COVID-19 related restrictions. So as these restrictions lift, which we'll talk a little bit about what some of those restrictions are, the Department of Homeland Security feels that certain people may exploit those restrictions. So these threats include those posed by domestic terrorists, individuals and groups engaged in grievance-based violence, and those inspired or influenced by foreign terrorists and other malign foreign influences. Social media and online forums are increasingly exploited by these actors to influence and spread violent extremist narratives and activities. Such threats also are exacerbated by the impact from the ongoing global pandemic. I am going to take two key words out of that two-sentence paragraph: influence. They're looking for social media influencers, and they are looking for social media influencers that are making an impact in informing people. Those people are under surveillance. Those people are, signal intelligence has pinpointed those people.
Right.
If they're talking about impact, they're impacting people in a very impacted way, providing knowledge about impact investment. Okay, so you know what I'm talking about.
Well, we've been talking about that as well. But
sometimes you can find the
keywords
and these kinds of things.
Well, I think also they're talking about influencers and people exploiting a situation. It's like, we know that the state is violence. Okay,
it just is.
And the state is violence, and Homeland Security is violence against people. The fact that we have had to, for the last 20 years, take off our shoes and go through these mechanisms that are very harmful
to our bodies, scrambling our DNA.
They say, oh no, this is fine, even though we didn't test them, whatever. This is all violence against you. Even though it may not feel like it hurts you, it does. It's always violence. It's violence.
So I think, and I think if you're the kind of person, if you're like us, where you just take a very cool, standoffish approach to the corporations or the corporate-run state, and you just have your own kind of microscopic little interactions where, we're when I say microscopic, I mean really microscopic. Like, we have a vegetable garden in the back of our house. The state isn't going to come pounding down the door and tell us, that we're domestic terrorists because we're growing carrots.
Right.
That's not going to
Right,
happen.
right.
Or if the little kids who don't have playgrounds and they have to play in the gravel want to come over to our house and play on our instruments, that's our way of being community.
Or if they want to play on the roof across the street.
I know we have a little Dennis the Menace in our neighborhood. I actually have footage. It's too bad we didn't.
Yeah, I know,
we
you
don't
didn't
have it.
include
We
it.
could totally share it. We have a little Dennis the Menace type in our neighborhood, right across the street from our house. This child loves to run around on the roof, and he plays with the wires and everything. Like he's like a little Dennis the Menace,
Right.
and he jumps around on the roof, and then he jumps back into his window when he sees somebody walking, and he jumps back out. We're always like, don't play on the roof. And he's just like, he's going to do what he wants.
Yeah,
So
right.
hopefully everything's okay.
And that's what that's what I would like other people in the world, especially, here where we live, the adults should be doing more like what this kid, that's a great example. Do what you really
Just
want.
do it, do what you want.
Right.
We, once the Department of Homeland Security came out with this message on Friday the 14th, and even before then, we didn't really advocate for people coming out for the worldwide freedom rally day yesterday, which was May 15th.
Yeah.
So they came out with their announcement on May 14th, and it kind of shored it up for us. Like,
Mhm.
it's a good thing we really haven't been talking about it.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in supporting something that the Department of Homeland Security is specifically funded in order to target. Like,
Well,
you know what I mean?
on the other
Like,
hand,
it's just
it's like they are basically putting it out there that, like, we are squelching these types of protests. We are squelching, or we are encouraging people with a very heavy-handed document or a press release saying that we're going out of our way to discourage people from conducting their First Amendment rights.
right.
And
Which is-
and the fourth too, right? Or whatever it is, your
Right.
right to assemble and your right to freedom of speech, right? So this is very heavy-handed. It's the state again taking away your guaranteed human rights to do these things, to
Right.
play on the roof, and to tell the government that they're full of shit, right?
Right. So I think that, one thing that we always come at it from the angle of, we don't need a piece of paper to tell us that we can talk. We don't need a piece of paper to tell us that we're free. We just are.
Yeah, you just are.
We just are. And so
yeah.
I think that if you are aware of what you're up against, and if you are a social media influencer, we're not social media influencers. Clearly, we're not social media influencers. But some people are. And if they're aware of it and they know that influence means that they're targeted and they're willing to take that chance,
Mm-hmm.
then that's their decision.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that it's a way of manipulating the narrative of
Right.
what's going on, and it's manipulating people's behavior, and I think that there's a lot more of that coming down the road in different forms.
Sure. Speaking of the manipulation of behavior, you may start out as an authentic social media influencer, where you come with good information about what's going on in the world, and you're enlightening people and sharing this vast knowledge that you have with the world, and you become really popular. At some point, there will be, this is not up for speculation, this is part of signal intelligence, there will be a time when you become useful to the state, when you become useful to the security apparatus, and you become kind of controlled opposition types. And that brings us to Jimmy Dore.
Right, right. So you were either a deliberately used controlled opposition or a useful idiot.
Or a useful idiot.
Yeah.
And exactly. Either way, you are useful to the state
Right.
or the security apparatus within the state.
Right.
Always.
Yeah.
If you're a social media influencer
Right.
or an influencer of some sort.
So you have to have a critical eye on what it is that you're disseminating as far as information goes. So yeah, but in the case of Jimmy Dore, on the other hand, we feel like he's being used directly, and probably being paid handsomely to do it. Yeah.
So we like to talk about things through the through the lens of propaganda, and we like to talk about narrative. So Jimmy Dore came out a few weeks ago. I guess it was about a month ago. Maybe it was a few weeks ago. And he tweeted a tweet. It was a very timely tweet. You always have to, timing is everything, right? It was a timely tweet that said that he had his second Moderna shot, and 1 week after he had gotten his second Moderna shot, he was still feeling the negative effects. He was still feeling sick. And hey guys, is this normal? And he tweeted that. And that tweet went viral. And next thing you know, social media exploded. And next thing you know, people were podcasting about it on their shows on YouTube. Next thing you know, you had, people posting about it all over the place. So that provided a pivot to that was not necessarily about Jimmy Dore being sick. It was a narrative that was to signal that we're going to be experiencing a pivot in this age of COVID.
Well, I think it's more, we love to use this word, but there's more fuckery.
Yeah.
In terms of
people. It kind of defines that, doesn't it?
Right. Well, and it's like there was all this propaganda going out there about the shots not having any effects out there at all. Nobody's having any effects. Nothing. No story here. There's nothing going on, and yet there was a persistent story out there, or narrative out there from people saying people are dying, people are being hurt, people are getting sick, and I believe that Jimmy's tweet was probably put out there to kind of help
level it or playing field
cool it off a little bit, kind of dilute it. That's the word I'm looking for.
Right, yeah.
Dilute the message out there because he's an influencer, and it's like, an operative. But see, he's the perfect foil for that kind of thing, because now he's considered alternative media, and so now you can take an official voice of alternative media, and mainstream media can say, oh, well, that's just one of those alt media types, and we can dismiss that because he doesn't really represent what's really happening, which is what we're saying is happening, which is the official, which is everything, which is the official thing, and everything's fine, and these alternative types, they're going to say this no matter what.
Right.
Right.
So so there is that underlying narrative happening with what he just said,
right.
But I'm looking at it from a more psychological perspective, like changing the way we think. So the minute Jimmy Dore came out with this tweet a few weeks ago, we jumped onto that conversation and that narrative, and immediately after that, it signaled to the apparatus, the propaganda, the marketing, that another narrative was to come.
I think along the lines of what you said, I'm sorry, before you go on, I think that the idea of like getting it out there and getting people to talk about it also helps dilute it, which then allows for the pivot that you're just about to go to.
So Jimmy Dore mentions this, the narrative is diluted, it's undermined, and it pivots. So the narrative, kind of fizzles away, and it pivots into the new the new theme of the moment, which is that, the Gates are getting a divorce.
Oh,
And the
bummer.
Gates getting a divorce really tells you that here's your $180 billion. Thank you for playing. You did really well. You played your part very well. Everything's going according to plan. You can exit stage left. Go enjoy your luxurious life.
Go to your private island and
Yeah. And that's what
Yeah.
the Gates divorce is really about. It's not
Mhm.
about Bill and Melinda getting a divorce.
No.
Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I
There's-
could really care less
could either,
about
yeah,
those two,
yeah.
but they're divorcing. What it is that they're divorcing their influence in the narrative
Right, and divorcing you.
and divorcing you.
Right.
They fucked you over, so now they're going to take the
Right.
money and run.
And not even them particularly, but the billionaire class, specific or
right.
in
So they
particular,
represent
right?
the billionaire class. So
Right.
there's a lot of representation there. There's a lot of metaphor
Right.
with them getting a divorce. There's a lot of things going on with that particular, the billionaire class
Right.
divorcing us from reality. That's a big one.
Right.
So they then have their moment, and then that pivots to another narrative, which has gripped the country. This is your life, okay? A series of narratives that are basically going to turn your mind into Swiss cheese if you're not careful.
Right. Yeah.
So they, they announce their divorce, and so it pivots to a new narrative. And the new narrative now is that every corporate store in the United States, just about every corporate store, from what I can see, very quickly, within less than a 24-hour period, they all came out and announced at the same time that they were allowing their vaccinated customers to shop without a mask.
Mm-hmm.
And this brought a flurry of conversation. Well, how does that work for people? Maybe I can get away with not wearing a mask even though I'm not vaccinated, but then they're going to want to see proof of vaccines. And oh my gosh, then there comes the vaccine passports, and they're going to make me produce my papers. And oh my God, this is a show me your papers, Nazi state now. Oh my gosh, so there's this whole conversation coming out.
Well, even coming from
that.
mainstream, like you mentioned, like we tried to do a recording of this yesterday and it got messed with by Facebook, but
well, I think there was some technical difficulties there.
Yeah. Well, anyway, nonetheless, I mean, it got garbled.
Right.
You mentioned Maddow.
Mm-hmm.
She came out with this. Suddenly, she's confused, and when Rachel Maddow is never confused. She's like, well, if people are not wearing masks, then we have to be nice to them because they might have been vaccinated, and you never know because you just don't know between the
right. So what Rachel Maddow said was, all this time, I've held such contempt for people who have, fought against having to wear a mask, and I've held contempt for people who are, not getting the COVID shot. All this time I felt contempt for these people, but now with these new store mandates coming out, and I see people not wearing a mask, then I'm going to have to rewire my brain and change the way I think of people and assume that if someone isn't wearing a mask, that they're okay, that they've probably been vaccinated or got the COVID shot. And that's what she was saying. And I'm like, yeah, what are you really saying, lady?
Right.
Like, I don't trust the popular narratives. I don't trust the pundits. So she says that for a reason.
Right.
Like there's a reason for that. But what we also had at the same time as the corporate America telling their consumers, if you've been vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. What we have the same time is Rand Paul challenging Dr. Fauci on national media about gain of function research. And the day before that came out, I did a video.
Mm-hmm.
And we can show it.
And we can't show it because I didn't set it up.
Oh,
Let me see if I can bring that up real quick.
maybe we
Yeah.
can try to figure out how to do that.
So yeah, me.
Anyway.
Yeah. You keep talking, and I'll
Yeah.
bring that up. Okay.
Okay, yeah, no problem. So I did this video, and then the very next day, Fauci and uh, Rand Paul.
Rand Paul.
Was
Yeah.
it Rand Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah. Had a confrontational discussion about gain of function research, and gain of function research is it's been around for a while. It's not anything. It's right there. It's not anything really different or scary. It's just that the funding was pulled for it a while back, and then the funding was reinstated back in 2017. So anyway, we can watch the video.
Yeah, let's watch that right now.
Okay.
And then let's see. Yeah, I have to show this on the screen.
And then just push play.
And play. Oh, I have to go to the tab and play it. All right, there we go.
Recently, the term gain of function research has been trending in national media. Gain of function research is the use of taxpayer money to better understand current and future pandemics through the study and testing of benign coronaviruses and their potentiality for virulence and potency. In November 2014, Harvard epidemiologist Mark Lipsitch appeals to a panel of peers on the importance of science-backed funding for gain of function research. 1 month later, at a 3-day symposium organized by the Volkswagen Foundation with the Max Planck Society in Hanover, Germany, concerns were raised that the gain of function research is a threat to public health. It could be used for biowarfare, and if the research were leaked, it could cause an unnecessary pandemic. 3 years later, in December 2017, Dr. Collins, head of the U.S. National Institute of Health, announced that funding would resume for gain of function research. 3 years after he implores a panel of peers on the importance of gain of function research, Lipsitch materializes and is quoted as saying the research has done almost nothing to improve preparedness for pandemics. But, at least through government funding, there will be extra levels of review. 3 years after that, in early March 2020, Mark Lipsitch appears again and announces on national media that 40 to 70% of the world's adult population could possibly be infected with this new pandemic strain. What happened between 2017, when gain of function research funding was reinstated, and 2020, when the first signs of the pandemic started to appear? Did the gain of function research focus on isolating and developing a spike protein? And if so, was it combined with self-amplifying messenger RNA, which is a developed delivery system that was designed specifically for human-to-human transmission of what people were later told was COVID-19?
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun to make those little blurbs.
Yeah.
They always last about 2 minutes long. So I think what we're seeing here.
Oh, hey, go away.
There you go. Just exit there.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing here is a lack of interest in the COVID shot. And, it doesn't take a genius to know that. We had our own governor of the state that we currently live in come out and say on Meet the Press, I can't really reverse my mandates until 70% of Pennsylvanians get the COVID shot.
Right.
And, there are no mandates. Governors don't make laws.
Right.
So there never was a law to either get a vaccine or get a COVID shot or wear a mask or close your business or do anything.
Right.
It was never a law. So, but people chose to do it.
Well, and people thought it was a law because they're so, Americans and everybody seems to be so capitulating to the rulers, right? They think the governor is allowed to tell them what to do.
Right.
And the governor is not allowed to tell them what to do.
You know, I'm of the mindset that ignorance is not an excuse.
No, it's not
so-
an excuse, but you heard people say that outright, and you see signs on the window. And this part really pisses me off.
Yeah,
That's
I
why I'm a
know.
little worked up, because you'd see people, they'd be like, well, the governor said it's a rule, and it's the law, and it's like, it's not the law. There is no law, you dumbass.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
People are very stupid, and they love their ignorance. They hold up their ignorance as a way to, whatever. It's I can't relate. So the point of all of this is that there's not a lot of interest in people allowing themselves to be experimented on, because anybody who's received the COVID shot is, I guess, under experimental protocols, I guess. I mean, it's not been authorized by the FDA, and it doesn't take a genius to know that when something isn't authorized, it's because they're still in their experimental phase. And,
Right.
Some people just are like, yeah, I don't want to be your guinea pig.
Well, I think, have you heard the latest statistics on the national compliance with it?
I don't know.
The last time I heard, well,
I mean, 20%, 30%.
I think it's more like 20%, which means 80% has not, right? But in our state, where people just love, they love authority, and they love authority figures. I think we're up to about 50%, close to 50%. And but maybe, the last time I heard it was around 40, but I think
that's their choice.
That's their choice. But what I'm trying to say is that most of the state, well, this state seems to be the most compliant of the whole United States, but most of the country is like, fuck that. I'm not doing that.
Most of the world.
And most of the world, are saying no way, we're not doing that. And I think that and the whole point of me bringing up statistics, and we don't like statistics here so much because we don't,
because you never know what the real is, right?
But the point that I'm trying to make here is that a majority of the population worldwide, as well as the country, are pushing back, and that's why the propaganda has been so hard. And that's why they're now, the governors are coming out and saying, get a beer and a shot, get a burger and fries,
or $1 million,
and $1 million. Or
if you live in Ohio,
you get entered into a lottery. It's like, oh, whoop-de-doo. Yeah. So a lottery can't be fixed.
So the point that I'm trying to make with all of this is that when things are gamed out in the corporate world, they always have plan Bs and plan Cs and plan Ds, and then they always have backup plans for when other plans don't work, and when other budgets are exhausted, they have something else to come in and swoop in, and if they want
that to happen,
right. So my feeling about this challenging conversation that took place between Rand Paul and Dr. Fauci regarding gain of function research, which you guys can find the footage of that, I'm sure everybody's seen it, is that the propagandists, the marketing people who are looking to make money, and of course, the national security apparatus, and of course the military, are all seeking more funding. And so here is me speculating as a creative and somebody who enjoys, propaganda and marketing, looking at it from a kind of an indifferent perspective. My feeling is that they may, don't quote me on this, I may not be right, they may pivot away from, hey, this was a virus that attacked, innocent people in late 2019, early 2020, and all these people had this strange sickness, and we called it COVID-19 because we had scientists who we really respect that said so. Well, It turns out, people, that it wasn't a virus, it was a bioweapon, and that bioweapon came out of China. And so then we're going to have another 9/11 thing where you get a really dumb population that is, USA, that is going to say, you mean I had to close my business, and I have all these, suicides in my family, and I had to pull my kids out of school, and now they're in therapy for the rest of their lives, and I lost my income, and I lost all these people to, unnecessary protocols like keeping people quarantined away in nursing homes where they were more susceptible to terrain kind of illnesses, which is ultimately what killed them. So I had to do all these things, and I had to kill grandma and all this stuff because of China.
Yeah. So the gain of function narrative is that Fauci paid this lab in China to do this thing, and it's gonna Fauci's gonna like slough off.
Oh sure, he's not
the
gonna,
narrative,
yeah.
right? And it'll all get pointed to China. I mean, they did this after 9/11. It was Osama bin Laden, Osama bin Laden, Osama bin Laden, and then suddenly it was transitioned to Iraq. And who was the leader? Saddam Hussein, right? And it was an easy transition, and you saw it. I mean, you could see it happening.
I mean, the narrative is
always, and
it never changes,
right? And so
set your watch to
suddenly Osama bin Laden is kind of like pushed to the background, and it's Saddam Hussein in Iraq that's the problem.
It's like, wait, where did you go from?
Yeah, and then after that was done, they were, oh, hey, by the way, we need to go after Osama bin Laden again. And we talked about that. I don't want to go into that.
So,
that's
my theory. Now, hopefully I'm wrong. And the thing is that if I'm not wrong, and they want to transition away from this whole like virus and COVID shot talk, because they're like, look, we just can't get the public to fuck themselves over. We can't get the public to allow themselves to be experimented on. It's just not working. So maybe we can get the public to be on board with blaming another country for their own poverty.
Yeah, and especially one that's easy to blame. I mean, and who knows if it'll work or not, because the whole Russia Gate thing, the Democrats keep trying to bring it back up. Russia.
Oh, plus it's the 20-year anniversary of 9/11.
Right, exactly. So
everyone's going to be feeling all patriotic
anyway, right?
What better way to exploit your patriotism than to tell you that it was another country?
And take the blame away from the state, right?
Right. Take away from the fact that your own government is constantly undermining your happiness and your humanity and your ability to take care of yourself and your kids.
Right. And not that we are fans of China in any way.
Oh, we're not fans of anything.
We're not a fan of any government.
We're not fans of leadership, whether they are a social media influencer or whether they are, another state or another country or the state or corporations. We're just fans of the people.
Right.
Just the little guy.
And, not to say that, you need some sort of, leadership that can spontaneously take charge or take the role of leader and then roll back into the people. There's nothing wrong with that. But when people, say, take authoritarian measures and say, I am the leader and you're going to follow me or else, that's when it's a problem. And
it always goes there.
And it always seems to go there.
It always does.
We have been seeing this, all along. And so this whole thing of like, oh, look at over there. It's China. They're the ones that are at fault. Oh, nothing to do with us, so, that's what we're going to be seeing, I think.
Right.
And just like you said, I mean, the 9/11 analogy is really good. And as we, as you pointed out, it's the 20-year anniversary in September.
Yes. I know, I hope she doesn't mind that I say this, but I know that Rosemary Frey is writing an article about the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and I'm really looking forward to that one. She was on our show recently.
Right.
One thing, too, that I wanted to mention is that as we transition into this new way of life, which is that, hey, if you've been vaccinated, you can take off your mask and you can come back to your art class, or you can come back to shopping at your favorite little trendy boutique store. And I'm concerned because I think on a microscopic level, there are some people that are not going to be able to go back to the things that they enjoyed or needed in life because for whatever reason, they haven't gotten the COVID shot. And this means that, if they have to produce some sort of evidence of that, of getting it, and they can't produce evidence of it, then that means they have to wear a mask. And at that point, you may as well just put a fucking yellow star on your lapel.
Right. And
honestly, people.
This whole narrative of the stores, going along with what you were saying, it's like what we're faced with now is, basically, proof of compliance, right? As I put here,
It's right here.
is it right here? Yeah, I mean, it's so there's this whole narrative of this you're right, exactly, asking for proof. Like, well, what's the proof? What are they going to be using to prove that you have complied with the orders to to get a vaccine, or what they're calling a vaccine? And it's like, I hadn't thought of it before. I mean, I was thinking, they're going to make you have an app, or the what's been discussed, this whole thing with the vaccine passports, right? Well, I don't think that technology has rolled out yet. I don't think that they're going to be able to get anybody to comply with that. Who knows what kind of app they're going to be requiring? Are people going to be downloading that? No, I don't think that there's going to be any compliance with that. And something a friend of ours brought up was a card that you apparently get when you.
Right. So yeah.
Clearly, I haven't gone to get a shot.
Right. So when you go get your COVID shot, or any shot at all, any vaccine at all, I mean, it's in your medical record anyway. But for this particular one, I guess you get like a little thing that says, you got your COVID shot. Well, and some places were even offering to laminate it for you.
Right. So there's a reason that they did that, and there's and that ties in with the narrative of the stores now saying, oh, well, now you don't have to wear a mask. Now, they haven't come out and said, we're going to demand proof of vaccination, but that that's what's coming next. That is what's going to be coming next. And
unless they distract us with some kind of patriotic China released a bioweapon, and oh my goodness, those of you who have received the COVID shot because you thought that you had a virus, or that you thought you were going to get sick with the virus. That's actually not the case, but you got your COVID shot. So why don't you come in again, and we'll do some testing on you and make sure you're okay, because it actually wasn't a virus, it was a bioweapon, and you'll be fine. Don't worry about it. You'll be fine. Let's just go ahead and focus on the real bad guys.
Yeah.
The only way that this whole domestic COVID pass to get into stores and go grocery shopping or have a life or whatever, the only way that kind of peters out and doesn't really go anywhere is if this other narrative picks up, which I equally do not want to pick up. It's like, can't we just have a normal life? Why does it always have to be some kind of anxiety-making propaganda, psychological, throwing holes in our brains, bullshit? Why can't we just live a normal life? And the way that you do that is you ignore everything. You don't close your business. You don't force people to wear a mask. You don't force them to throw on a yellow star or provide proof of a COVID shot. You do like the bus driver did, and you just let people live and do what they want.
Well, maybe we should play reciprocity.
Reciprocity. We played it before. I guess we can play it again. But that's how it works. And your leadership is only there to fuck with you. They get paid a lot of money to make you anxious and everything. So I would say, you should just do what you want and not care.
And ignore these people.
Really ignore them.
Exactly.
Don't get too excited. The technology isn't there.
All right. Well, and should we
you
close out?
Just end it with that?
Yeah, let's close it out.
We'll end it with reciprocity. And just very quickly, join us on Tuesday, which is tomorrow. We will.
That's May 18th.
We will be interviewing Paul Kudnick of Winter Oak.
Yeah.
And he's written lots of books. And he, some of you who are connected to us and enjoy following our work, I noticed that some of you have actually shared his work on your own private pages. So that's good. So
Yeah.
please stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
We're going to have a really great conversation with him. We really love his work.
Yeah. So that'll be 10 a.m. Eastern daylight time.
It'll be early.
It'll be early on the West Coast. That's like 7 a.m. Eastern daylight time. And
so
I think
hopefully you'll catch it.
Yeah. So I think 2 p.m. UTC, something like that. So
something like that.
Yeah. So join us for that. And also, we are always looking for new patrons. So go to patreon.com/bookofhours and contribute as little as $2 a month, and you can become a patron. You can see extra work that we don't share with the general public. This is premium content. You can go to Rockfin, become a member for free, and then you can tip us on our videos that we have posted there. You can also become a premium member at Rockfin through Book of Hours, and we get a cut of that. You can see our premium content as well as the other content creators' premium content. There's lots out there. Even the earlier mentioned Jimmy Dore, right, is on Rockfin. And then finally, if you want to just give us a one-time donation, you can go to paypal.me/bookofhours. And I guess that wraps it up. Let's go to our reciprocity, and it will illustrate what we've been just talking about. All right. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
There is no need to believe we should be controlled or governed. We can self-govern and manage our own lives and communities without rulers telling us how and where to live, what to do, and what makes us happy. But rather than thinking about creating a situation of mutual productivity and self-sufficiency, we can probably accomplish much more by developing relationships based on reciprocity, gratitude, generosity, and abundance. Reciprocity and bounty is incompatible with the exploitation of nature and people, and it's what will allow us to turn our backs on the slavery that the billionaires have planned for us. Reciprocity and generosity erodes the scarcity and alienation of capitalism. If you have a garden, you have the gift of abundance. If you have skills to create art or useful tools or objects, you have the means to share and exchange with each other in an economy of gratitude, rather than one of buying and selling. Buying and selling as a means of exchange creates scarcity and greed, which is at the very heart of capitalism, and especially the type of capitalism that is attacking us right now. With that in mind, we have to decide. Are we going to just go along with a system that will enslave us and our children for the rest of our lives? Or do we step away from this nightmare? None of us really have the answer as to how we're going to respond to this and where we'll be in 6 months, let alone 5 years. We'll all have to figure out what works for us and for the people around us. In all cases, though, we'll need to renew our human spirit in the face of destruction. It may seem simplistic or idealistic or utopian, but the alternative does not look good. Are you ready to break with scarcity and embrace abundance? Are you?
Book of Hours are artists here to empower and embolden your response to the constant negative sound bites that attack your news and social media feeds. In order to continue making the video essays and art you've come to enjoy, we need your support. Make a one-time donation or become a patron. Thank you.